Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update from Minera Alamos. Minera Alamos is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker MAI and on the OTCQX under the ticker MAIFF. And I'm joined today with the chairman of Minera Alamos, Jason Kosec. And Jason, it's great to get you back on the show to talk about what I think is a transformational transaction for Minera Alamos. You announced to the marketplace yesterday on August the 7th that you're going to be acquiring the Nevada assets from Equinox Gold. Really, these used to belong to Calibre Mining, and we've had Calibre on the show a number of times over the years and talked about the Pan Mine and the Gold Rock Development Project in Nevada. These are really too small of assets for Equinox now because they've moved into the major category, trying to produce 1 million ounces of gold a year. And so I knew that these were assets that were going to be going into the hands of a smaller junior, but I was surprised myself to see that Minera Alamos picked them up yesterday. So this is a big deal in that you really bring in a producing mine in Nevada, and I think it's doing around 40,000 ounces a year of production. And you have a lot of exploration upside there that Calibre demonstrated under their tenure. But you also have this Gold Rock project, which is a development project that could essentially double production over time as it comes into production. So this is a big deal for Minera Alamos in that you're bringing in a bigger producing asset. It opens up a broader investor base. It also opens up the potential to get a better cost of capital as a producer for developing all the other projects Minera has. Obviously, a couple projects in Mexico and the Copperstone Mine in Arizona that's a development project and near stage potential project that could also go into production. So a lot of moving parts with Minera Alamos now. But Jason, unpack this deal for us and unpack the rationale for Minera Alamos to acquire these Nevada assets and really boost its production profile.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chad, for having me back on. Really appreciate it. So, yes, it was a very transformational acquisition. Nothing has really changed in the Minera Alamos strategy moving forward. Frankly, this is really the matchstick that unlocks the $1 billion of pro forma corporate NAV. And the beauty about this now is everything can be built out of internal cash flow. Pan is, pretty steady state, as you mentioned, 35 to 40,000 ounces a year. I think Darren and the team have found some ways to increase that to closer to 50, 55 over the coming 6 to 12 months. And costs have been pretty steady state there, between, call it 1450 and 1650 over the last couple of years. I have to tap my hat to the Fiore team before and the Calibre team subsequent to that. They've done an exceptional job replacing resources and reserves over the years, and we really see that trend continuing. As I mentioned, Gold Rock is a development asset 8 kilometers south of the Pan Mine. We will bring that into production. We will have updated tech reports on Pan and Gold Rock in the coming months. That'll demonstrate that as basically one project that has the potential to do, 100, 110,000 ounces per annum in costs like historical levels around 15 to 1600. So really nice margin. And it gives us steady state cash flow that unlocks the rest of the portfolio. More importantly, Minera, as you know, Shad, you talked to the team before, there's a permitting overhang in Mexico, and we know we're going to get the permits. We know we're going to get them. It's just a matter of when. Okay. So by doing this transaction, you move, frankly, from a small producer slash really a developer, to be quite honest, to a producer lever multiple. And as we execute on Gold Rock and Copperstone and Cerro De Oro, you'll trade in line with our peer group that's trading at about zero point 0.8, where we're trading right now at 0.2. So there's a significant re-rating opportunity as you switch from basically a developer to a producer with high quality assets like Pan, Gold Rock, Copperstone, and Cerro De Oro.
Well, and let's dig into that a little bit more as far as the re-rating potential and some of the rationale in the background. Because some people, when they saw the transaction, were like, well, are we pivoting away from Mexico then? Are we giving up on Mexico? And that's not the case at all. But that's obviously one of the narratives that runs. So just talk about how this is a springboard by having these production assets in Nevada, first Pan and then eventually Gold Rock, to actually even produce and develop in tandem the Mexican assets.
Yeah, we'll sequence these things to maximize earnings per share, right? We have a small team. We bootstrap these projects as you mentioned. So, the way we develop it right now, obviously Pan's in production. Copperstone will come online next. And then most likely Cerro De Oro or Gold Rock. We can play with that and look at what is the best return on a go forward basis. But, like I said a few times now, is that you don't have to go back to the market to do project financing for any of these, and it'll give us a much better cost of capital moving forward. And as you increase your production profile, you move into a more general audience so we can kind of capture this really nice gold market that we're in.
So yeah, that's the other thing with gold prices where they're at and the potential for margin expansion if gold prices go even higher. And if you optimize the operations there, it gives you the ability to do the development work needed on the other projects without having to be so dilutive. And this reminds me of the same playbook that you had when you're over at Integra. And I think, Jason, people will remember we've had you on the show before at Integra Resources where you purchased Florida Canyon, and it was for the same kind of idea that the revenues coming in from that mine, and especially in this kind of a gold environment, helped you move along Delamar, Nevada North. Same playbook here, it sounds like, where the revenues coming in from Pan can help you develop Copperstone. And then once you got the second mine going, it can help you develop Cerro de Oro or it can help you develop Gold Rock. So maybe talk about that playbook and how it unlocks value and brings in a different caliber of investor.
Yeah, it's a very similar playbook to what I just did at Integra. And, it was a great transaction. You could see the share price is up 160%, whereas all the other developers are trading flat. And I see the same share price potential with this acquisition. This isn't the only one. It's a proven playbook. You look at Andean and Golden Queen when they acquired that thing's up 640%. When Discovery acquired Porcupine, it's up 350%. And, they trade extremely, extremely well when you are basically fully financed and pretty much all of your projects are permitted.
Well, and also talk a little bit about the diversification of jurisdiction. While the company has three assets in Mexico, Santana, Cerro de Oro, and Fortuna, when you picked up the Copperstone mine from the Sabre acquisition, that diversified the company into Arizona. So you really have, North American profile there. But now you brought in Nevada, one of the best jurisdictions on the planet. So talk about how the jurisdiction diversification is also another angle, and Nevada is always a hot. You've been in Nevada for a long time with your projects, so, but just maybe speak to how that also layers into the valuation you could achieve, but also the kind of investors you can attract.
Yeah, I touched on it earlier, but I think there's been kind of a cap on Minera Alamos, quite frankly, because of Mexican permits. And we have the ability now to develop our permitted projects and optimize our producing projects so that we can participate in this great bull market that we're in. We are still fully involved in Mexico, and we think permits are coming. But, to run a business when you're relying on the government for a lifeline is really challenging. And this kind of puts the control back into the company's hands, whereas leaving the control in the government's hands and can basically accelerate the existing plan that we had in place.
Well, and what do you think is possible as far as the sequence of events in getting another mine up and running? So as far as once this transaction closes and once you got everything humming along here and you start optimizing Pan, what's the pathway to production look like for something like Copperstone once you figure in the cash flows and revenues that'll be coming in from Pan?
Yeah, the team still has to do some work on that, to be quite honest, Chad. But the first things first is optimizing Pan. And listen, Calibre has done a great job there. I think there's the potential, as I mentioned earlier, to increase production closer to 50,000 ounces, basically increasing the crushing circuit for about a couple $1 million. The other thing that we'll do is we see a lot of potential when we run our whittle optimization shells and run them at 2,000 or 2,200 instead of 1,700. You'll pull in a lot more material and can materially increase the resources and reserves at Pan and at Gold Rock. While we're doing that, and to integrate the team takes a while, to put the crusher in takes a while. We're talking like 6 to 8 months. So not like 2 years or anything like that. While we're doing that, Kevin Small and the team will start building out Copperstone. And then depending on permitting, you can either do Cerro de Oro or Gold Rock next. That's just permit dependent. But Cerro de Oro is a really, really big system, and it has the potential to significantly grow. It's sitting at around 67 million tons right now, around 800,000 ounces. I see that significantly growing, and that's one of the main reasons why I joined as chairman of this company and wrote a substantial check into this financing, is that not only are the people have a really great skill set for the opportunity at hand to operate and develop these projects, but the exploration potential to significantly grow these and subsequent to that, augmenting the economics in a very positive fashion is one of the are the two main reasons why I joined.
Yeah, I know you like the expiration upside, and let's talk about that for just a moment. When I was talking with Ryan King of Calibre a year or two ago at Pan and Gold Rock, they consistently said, "Hey, look, there is other areas here that we can tap into." And I think they found the Coyote target. There were some other targets at Pan, but same thing at Gold Rock. They said these things could actually be a lot bigger. We just need to put some elbow grease into doing the exploration. Talk about the fact that there's still exploration upside at Nevada because some people have flagged that it's a shorter mine life at Pan, but that's definitely something that could be expanded.
Yeah, right. Like I said, the team Caliber and the guys have done a really good job. When they bought it from when Fiore put it into production in 2017, it had 27 million tons. Okay. At the end of last year, it had 34 million tons. So they've done an amazing job replacing resources and reserves, and hats off to them. And we see that trend continuing. There's a number of exploration targets at Pan. There's a number of exploration targets at Gold Rock. At Gold Rock, you have a 16.5 kilometer mineralized trend in a beautiful Carlin system that's hosted in the really nice open fold axis. And there's historical drilling there that's about 15, 10K away from the current pit. And you're talking intercepts, 50 to 40 meters between a gram and zero point 0.9 grams of oxide. And so there's a lot of potential to be had at these two projects. So, I don't want to give guidance too much, but we strongly believe that it's not an 8 year mine life. It's probably closer to 12 years
Yeah,
at
definitely
least.
some upside there. So, and obviously there's still upside. When I talked to Doug about Copperstone, there's still a lot of upside there for exploration. So it's not just what's in the economic studies or what the projected mine life is now. It's also all the exploration upside at all these assets. Same thing with Cerro de Oro, same thing with Fortuna. So there's a lot of work that the team has in front of them. Let's also just mention briefly that you do have a financing in conjunction with this that's helping you fund the acquisition. Maybe just what can you tell us there, Jason?
Yeah, so we did a financing yesterday, obviously, to fund this acquisition. We went up on just over $100 million. It was very, very, very well received from a lot of key institutions that have followed me around in everything I do. And, guys writing, 15, 20, $10 million checks into this. So we know exactly who holds the stock and really institutionalizing the story on a go forward basis and capture a larger audience. And that's what we plan to do from the capital markets perspective is now that, are a growth focused company with assets in the US and in Mexico. One of the things we'll look at doing next year is doing a NYSE listing because we will meet all trading requirements for the Russell 3000 and the GDXJ. The only thing we have to do with the GDXJ is increase our dollar volume trading, which we're going to work on. So I think getting index inclusion in the second half of next year will really drive a lot of positive momentum in the share price.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see a bigger board listing and getting included in some of those indexes. We have a big US audience, so I'm sure that'll be music to their ears to hear that. And then just maybe one last final comment here, Jason. We've alluded to your background a little bit with Millennial Precious Metals and Integra, but just as the chairman, what is the bigger term vision that you have? Maybe to share how your background leads into you being the right fit for being at the helm here and driving forward the value creation for investors.
Yeah, Darren and Doug have done a great job. I'm not going to change anything. Really, what it was putting together a funding package for the team and finding a quality asset that can kind of unlock the $1 billion of value that they built and done a great job at. So I'll be focused more on the overall strategy and capital markets perspective. So really looking at capital allocation and seeing what's best for shareholders on a go-forward basis. And like I said, really focusing on earnings per share is really what my focus will be on.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there for today, but I really appreciate you coming on and unpacking this transaction. I think it's a big deal for the company. It's a big deal in the industry too, and it's the kind of M&A that we like to see where it's a 1 + 1 = 3, because I think over time, as you unlock the value in the other assets and use the cash flow from Pan and the revenues from Pan to really develop the other mines, it's going to be a multi-mine producer, multi-jurisdiction producer. So a lot of news is going to be on tap from Minera Alamos. And for those of you listening in, definitely click on the link down in the show notes. It takes you over to the Minera Alamos website, straight to their news section where you can follow along or sign up for updates to hit your email inbox. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show again and breaking down the deal, and wishing you guys best of luck. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thanks a lot, Chad. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your listeners for tuning